So between CRISC and IT fundamental, yes, I addressed that. Probably I was not in, I mean, not having the audio by then. So CRISC is more on a certification. Other risk certificates, yes, it would help, but the upper hand is always with CRISC because one, it is from ISACA, more of a reputed organization. You have, as I told, vast areas that or domains that covers on CRISC. If you look for CRISC, the chapters or syllabus it is in, it is quite vast, so you have a lot of it and the depth itself is too huge on it. So you will be able to gain a lot of knowledge if you do CRISC, and it is more valued by other organizations as well. Yeah, not to say that others are not valid, but comparatively on upper hand it is CRISC, so comparatively a little tougher one as well. More from questions. So now is that you are in the exam hall, you have the questions on that, how you have to read the question. So is it very important? Obviously you can read the question and you have the options you can attempt. Why it is more important reading the question? You would have heard about people who take a certification, they would have told you about read the question properly, you should have the art of reading a question, you would have heard that, right? It is not an art of reading the English. It is going to be an easy language in the examination. There is no such jargons that are being used. It is a plain English. But what matters the most is that there are some disadvantages. So what I told you, you read a study text in domain one, attempt the questions in some domain one, right? So your knowledge is being restricted to domain one. You very well know that the question is from domain one. So the challenge in the examination itself is finding on where from the question domain the question is asked. Second thing is, it is not specific to a domain. There will be a mix of domain 3 and 4. In some question, you will not be able to find. Whether you, it is important to know which domain the question is from. Yes, because you should know how you have to take a decision. So reading the question, how you have to approach the question is more important. As I told, it is not a single line. They are not going to ask you what is a firewall. They are going to give a scenario based on which you need to decide on the specific question. So question may be a direct question or a scenario will be built, and as a risk professional you must take a decision. That is more important. Question will have four options. One is the right answer. So how you have to approach the examination or question? So there is a five step which is being followed. Will I have the time in the exam to do this five step for each question? Yes, you will have the time. That is why you are given 4 hours for just 150 questions. People can look for just for 150 questions 1 hour. I can just click on it, right? No, it is not possible. If with a person who have fairly prepared for the examination, they know that 3 hours is an ample time or 3 hours time is required to attempt the question. Yeah. So first, how you have to read the question? Plain English reading, identify the domain. That is more important. First, have a clear mindset, read the question, attempt it, and look for what is the question they are asking for. Read again and understand the stage of the question. That is more important. They would have asked what is that risk professional should decide, then they are looking for the final stage. What the risk practitioner should do next, they are looking for the very next step. That is more important because the answers will depend based on what is the stage of the question. Then there will be keywords in the question. What is the first step? What is the most important? What is least important? Or look for those kind of a keywords in the question, which is most important. What is a priority? So look for those specific keywords. Or they are looking for a risk professional point of view. They are looking from a management point of view. So look for those kind of a keywords in the question. Then more importantly, eliminating on the two options. Easily with fair preparation of 70-80%, you can easily eliminate two options. Always follow this approach of elimination in each question. Then finalize on one right answer. This needs a more of a mastering on the concept because two looks very similar, very identical. To eliminate on one and to choose one, it will take time. Only when you are clear with the concept, you can do that. So this is how you have to approach each question. Yes, so this is something very important. These 7 or 8 points is something which everyone is aware of. So reading this English is very easy. Practicing that is more important because it is a mind game. As such, the examination itself is a mind game. As I told, you need that patience and perseverance till the last moment. So don't fall prey for that mind game. Be very much successful on it. How to do for it? So book for the examination once you feel you are ready for it. That is more important. When you are confident and you have done enormous practice, then many of the points will fade off. If you are not confident on it to take the examination, better not to go. You spend even more time. Once you gain that confidence, go for the examination. How will I gain that confidence? It's just not by listening by gyan like this. You have to put in your heart soul effort on it. Only then you will gain that confidence which can push you to the examination. You can take the examination either from home or test centers. I would take, or I would suggest on taking from test centers, because predominantly you are given the privilege of taking some breaks or extra breaks if you are at the test center. If it is at home, you have a restricted break times, as well as there can be power fluctuations, there can be some disturbances. So all these are avoided when you are at the test center. Have a clear mindset and positive approach to examination. As I told, easy to write, difficult to practice. This should be practiced within yourself. Never think of the result. That is more important. As I told, clearing the examination is not the end. It is just a beginning. It is just opening your path for many roles. That's it. From there on, you are going to be a risk practitioner in an organization. You are going to be a risk consultant. You're going to take decisions based on which the organization is going to run. So that is more important. So look for gaining the knowledge, not for the entire result. That will put you down. The system flashes one question at the time. Think as a risk professional, answer the question. Why you have to put this question? Because there is always a preconceived notion from the previous question. The last 50 questions didn't go well. Should I proceed the examination? Is the thought process of 90% of the people. Already I know by the 50 questions I have attempted, I haven't attempted well. So let me just pass on the examination. Don't do till the last question. The level of confidence or the level of mindset that you have should be the same. Leave away the past question. Yeah, who knows, on the second 100 set of questions can be easy enough for you to attempt the examination. First 20 or 30 will take you a little down because you will be anxious, so the BP will be little high. That's okay. Just leave away that preconceived notion from the previous question. Yeah, leave it. You have one question, you have taken the question answer for it. Leave to the next question. Leave all the negative mindset with it. Have confidence till the last question. Never give up at any moment. You will never know when the miracle will happen. So just put in your efforts. You have prepared for it. This is just a test for the examination. Yeah, so go with a clear mindset. Don't, you can lose the exam because of lack of knowledge. That's still okay, you can gain it. But if it is just because of lack of confidence, that is more pretty pitier. Yeah, so don't lose that confidence till the last question. Spend the entire 4 hours. Don't step out early. That is more important. Spend at least 3 to 3.5 hours in the exam hall. Just not by sitting. I don't mean by just sitting for 3.5 hours. You are done by 2.5 hours. Start from 1 to 50. Once you're done with, start or restart the examination from 150 to 1. You will never know what is the kind of mindset that you had on the 135th question. Yeah, I would have given up at that moment. That's okay. Last 15 questions, I'll give up. So don't give up. Spend the entire 4 hours. Take enough breaks to freshen up your mind. That is more important. Yeah, I haven't told anything that is new or that you are not aware of. This is something that everyone is aware of. Yeah, so it is just a personal experience. Why to book when I'm ready? As I told, you can book 1 year from now on. As I told, 1 year to take the examination, you can pay. Yeah, if for a finance professional, if you ask me, you lose the interest for it. I wouldn't do that. If you prefer to do, yes, you can do. It is $750 in Indian rupee. It will be around 70,000. So instead of putting in banks, you are putting with Isaka. That's okay if you feel so. So now, so I have a set of mock questions to practice just on four questions. I wouldn't put, just to give a flavor as to how the question will look like. So these are not tough questions. These are just mock questions from Isaka manual, which is pretty much on okay kind of a thing, just to impart as to how the questions will look like. So you need the clarity of what are the risk type, what are the various risk type, what is that each of them means. So people will come back saying that question is a little tough, we are not able to attempt. So now you can understand it is a conceptual examination. So it is not on memory or anything. You should know that concept to understand it. So now on reading the question. So as in an organization has decided what? Not to take any countermeasure. for a specific scenario. Now you should understand what is a control risk, detection risk, inherent risk, and residual risk. What is a control risk? So what is a control risk? In an organization, you have found a vulnerability. Yeah, there is a weaker system. So you found that. After that, you implement controls. So even after implementing controls, the control is not effective. For example, imagine that the organization has given laptops for the employees. They know that the organization's documents are very confidential, not to be disclosed to a third party. So what they give? They give the laptops to the employees with the username as the employee ID and the password as 123 ABCD. So this is the password that is there in all the laptops of the organization. So there is a vulnerability. What is a vulnerability? You can expose your data to a third person. So that is a vulnerability. You are arresting that by having a control. What is a control that you should have? There should be a password for every system. So yes, you have a password, right, which is a control. But is that control effective? No, you have a weaker password mechanism, or you have a similar password for all the systems. So there is a control, but the control is not effective. Then there is no purpose of having a control. That is what is called as a control risk. Ineffective control or inefficient control is what is called as a control risk. So it is not so. So here on control risk, there is a measure that is taken. So A is eliminated. Now on detection risk, what is a detection risk? Detection risk, it detects, or it is like an audit, it detects if there is a risk. For example, there is a control, there is a motion sensor in the organization. What it does, if there is a motion in a specific room, it will capture. As such, the intention is to detect any anomaly, to detect any abnormality. So there is as well, there is a control that is taken. So you can eliminate the keyword, there is decided not to implement a countermeasure. That is a keyword. Then now on the residual risk. What is a residual risk? You have given a risk, you have implemented a control. Even after implementing the control, there is always a 1% risk. Like you have your Dettol 99.99% sure, right? So there is always a kind of a risk that is always getting exposed to, which you cannot eliminate. You cannot eliminate the risk, you can just mitigate the risk. Yeah, if I prepare good for the examination, if I'll be able to get all the 150 questions right, may not be sure. Yeah, even if you are 100% sure, we cannot guarantee on 100% right on the 150 questions. Similar to that, there is always an element of a risk which cannot be mitigated. That is what is called as a residual risk. So even in residual risk, you have implemented a control. That is a risk that lies even after implementing the control. That is residual risk. Inherent risk. What is the inherent risk? Inherence is the presence of something. As such, as a business requirement, there is something that is present as a risk. So what you have to do with the inherent risk? For those inherent risks, you have to apply the control to ensure that you reduce or bring the risk to the acceptable level. So this much of a knowledge is required to attempt the question. So C is the right answer for this question. So all this concept should go into your mind to understand what is the right answer for this question. Moving to the next question. So, at the end of each phase of risk management, would information about at end of which phase of risk management would information about newly discovered risk be communicated to the decision makers and the relevant stakeholders? Risk identification, response, reporting, assessment, risk and control, monitoring, and reporting. Take your time, read the question, identify the keyword. At this moment, you may not have that knowledge to attempt the examination. Don't just run around at the back saying that no, I am not clear with the concept. You haven't learned the concept. So only if you learn the concept, if you attempt it, if you go wrong, that's still okay. Yeah, you cannot ask an LKG kid to write a paragraph, right? It has to go through the process of learning the alphabets. So give that time. So now the question, if you look for, it is looking for the phase. Which phase you have to report to the board or report to the decision makers to take a decision. That is more important here. The stage of the question is on what is the stage you will let the stakeholders know that, hey, see, there is a risk which is to be addressed. That is what the question is on. Yeah. So we look for four stages. To answer this question, you should know the various stages of risk management. Yeah. So under risk identification stage, what the risk practitioner would do, he will identify, okay, if in this area, these are the risks that are identified. These are the risks that is involved. So now imagine that at this stage you are going to the management and saying, hey, see, there is a risk that is involved. What is the next question that they will be asking you? Okay, there is a risk, but what is the impact of it? If this risk is going to mitigate and get exploited by way of a threat, what is that is going to be my impact to the organization? You cannot cut a sorry figure then. So what you have to do as a risk practitioner, you have to move for the next stage. Okay, I know that there is a risk of this. So there are two things. What is the likelihood of occurrence? What is the impact of it? What likelihood is on how frequently this can occur. Second is, even if it occurs, what is going to be the impact to the organization? Only then you will be able to gauge. If I just go and say to you, hey, you have 4 domains, prepare everything, yeah, you prepare equally, you will ask the question, Ashwini, how many questions I'll get from this topic, right? Only then the importance goes there. So I say that, okay, domain 3 and 4 is more important, you have a lot of questions from there, then you will concentrate, okay, let me read 3 and 4 first, then I'll go to 1 and 2. That is how the normal human process is, right? So at that, in a risk identification stage, it is a very primary stage you have identified. Next on risk response and reporting. Who is supposed to take the decision? Who's supposed to respond to the risk? Always the risk manager or risk practitioner will bring the knowledge and give it to the management to take it further on, how they have to respond to the risk. We will say that this is the risk, this is the impact, this is the likelihood. Now it is up to the management, based on the risk appetite, they will decide on how to have to respond, whether I have to mitigate or transfer or accept or avoid. All this should be the decision of the management. So it is only after the communication, the response and reporting happens. Then on D, risk control, monitoring and reporting is at the last stage. After you have mitigated, monitored, is monitoring is at the final stage. When every controls are set, the everything is at the expectation. You look for, you cannot just sit idle after the control is implemented. You have to continuously monitor on it. So that is itself is the final stage. So communication should happen after the risk assessment stage. So at the end of risk assessment stage, so first you identify, then on analyze, then at the risk assessment stage, you tell the people or management saying that this is what you have assessed, based on which you respond or react to it. Then on control, monitoring and reporting. So at the end of risk assessment stage, you communicate to the stakeholders on it. So C is the right answer on it. So you should know the flow to answer this question. Just on 2 more questions to go. I haven't framed a lot of questions just to give you a glimpse as to how it works. So the best method of detecting and monitoring hackers' activities without exposing information assets to the unnecessary risk is to use firewalls, bastion host, honeypots, screen subnets. Yeah, so I have given the feedback link. If you are planning to leave and not interested in the question, you can very well give the feedback and then leave the question if you are not interested, or if you want to wait and ask some questions related to CRISC, yes, you can wait for it. Yeah. So now coming back to the question, so this is predominantly from domain 5. You should know as to what is the role of each of the activities here. So they are looking for what is the activity of, you are looking for the activities of the hacker without exposing the information assets to unnecessary risk. So the answer to it is not firewall. Firewall, what is that? There is a predetermined set of rules which is to be evaluated by a firewall. That's how a firewall works. So if those rules are not met, it will just stop there. It will not allow further in. That is the role of a firewall, which is not on capturing information of hacker activities. Screened subnet as well. The role of subnet is different, to fight or you to ensure that the internal network is not exposed to external network. That is the role of a screen host, which is as well one of a type of a firewall. So A and D are eliminated. Honeypots and bastion host, which is the right answer. Honeypot, it diverts the hacker to a wrong file. That is the role of a honeypot. Honeypot's role is to divert the hacker to a third one or to another file which is not the primary file. That is the role of a honeypot. What is the role of a bastion host? Bastion host is a special purpose computer which captures the hacker's information and know how to fight back to it. Bastion host is like a army man who at the beginning he is in fighting with the army. That is the role of a bastion host. Bastion host does not have any other function like other computers in the network. The role of a bastion host is to fight with the army, knowing that what is the power of the hacker. So it captures the activities of the hacker, fight backs to it. So B is the right answer. There is thin line of difference between B and C. A role or function differs. So B is the right answer for this question. So you should be able to identify and know what each does. If the question speaks on diverting the hacker to the wrong file, then it is going to be honeypot's secondary role can be to capture the information, but primary role is to divert the hacker to the wrong file. That is why the name it is called as a honeypot. Okay, so C is not the right answer here. B is the right answer here. Just moving to the last question. Okay. Senior management has defined that enterprise risk appetite as moderate. A critical application has been determined to pose a high risk. What is the next action the risk practitioner should take? Remove the high risk application and replace it with another system. Recommend the management to increase its acceptable risk level for the application. Assess the impact of planned controls to the application. Restrict access to application only to trusted users. Yeah. Removing the high risk application and replace it with another system, risk practitioner cannot take a decision. That is not the call the risk practitioner should do, and that is not going to be the immediate next decision should be taken by the risk practitioner. Restricting access to application only to trusted users, not the role of a risk practitioner. That is more related to the access control mechanism, probably a security administrator is supposed to do, not the role of a risk practitioner. Now, between B and C, people will go with the mindset, okay, practitioner should recommend the management, practitioner should recommend the management. That is what is the thought process. But what is the recommendation they are saying? Recommendation to the management is to increase the risk level or acceptable level for the application. Probably yes, but not the next course of action. So the next course of action is to assess the impact of planned controls of the application. That is more important. A recommendation probably can come at a later stage. So they are looking for the next course of action the recommend man or the risk manager or practitioner should take. So C is the right answer. This is how the questions are triggered. Probably not a very easy as well as not a difficult question as well. But this is how the questions will be. This is how you are supposed to read, eliminate, and finalize on the correct answer. Yeah.